Hi everyone, I'm super excited to be live on Facebook for Kevin Murphy. We're going to be filming here from my studio in Antwerp, and this is the place where it all happens, and for sure now in times of global lockdown, this is the place where it will be happening for quite a bit to come. So my name is Pascal Van Loenhout. I'm a design director for Kevin Murphy for cutting, and I'm really excited to showcase you some ingredients that belong to a great haircut and how you can translate your creativity into the salon, because the idea of today is to show you something which is salon friendly and very usable, of course, for where the salon is going to open again. So this is where it all happens. This is also where we create all the Cut Me collection haircuts, the Cut Me haircuts. This is the place where 6 years ago Kevin visited me for the first time for our first collaboration, and this is where we worked together and we designed together the first Cut Me collection. So this is actually, for me personally, as you could say, the brain and the heart of where I like to create and where I like to put things together. So, and this is what we're going to do online today, because this is the sources as creative people that we have at the moment. So it's great to have that. It's an amazing tool to be able to unite with the community and to be able to share what we love doing, because we are creative people, and if you look up creative people, it's quite a tough scenario, if you like. So it's one of these things that we need to be able to connect, we need to be able to communicate, and it's really important that we keep being creative, because the situation that we have now is quite restricting for us. So I think being in a difficult position is maybe taking an opportunity to actually take advantage over that and go back to the drawing board and make sure that by being actually trapped in a corner almost, that you bring the best out of your individual abilities. So I'm super happy to share a haircut with you. We're gonna do that from scratch. We're gonna take you through the technical part of the cut, and of course we're gonna include some taste, the vision behind it, the feeling behind it, and also on that journey of a step-by-step haircut, I would like to show you the how, the what, and most importantly the why behind what we do, and the combination of how we work with a very good technical skill set, but also how you combine that with incorporating your taste. I mean, since I've joined Kevin Murphy as a brand 7 years ago now, as an artist, I became a way better hairdresser, because working for a brand globally, which not only has amazing products with very cool names on the bottles, but also has managed to actually build a global community of hairdressers all in it for the same game, with a passion and everything like that. So having the channel of FaceTime or any other social media opportunity is great for us to stay in touch and to actually feed each other with the things that we love and like to see. Kevin Murphy for me has been an amazing journey, actually the best journey of my career so far, because it made me not only a better hairdresser, it made me a better person, and it made me realize that the way of how we work with hair, how we manipulate hair, having Kevin's editorial background has made me a lot stronger and a lot more specific in how to look at haircuts, how to look at proportions, how to look at shapes, how to combine lengths together. And as a finish, as an end result, when it comes from a styling perspective, I love the hair I do a lot more having that whole background of Kevin Murphy behind me, because the whole team has the power and the ability to bring out the best in all of us. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm very fortunate to be in that position. I have been traveling the world for doing this job, and I'm very grateful for that, with the most amazing people I've ever met. I call them family. And I always thought while I was doing that, I would never take it for granted. And I never did, I believe. But now, having that quarantine, having that lockdown, makes me even more realize that what we have as a global community is actually absolutely super special. So we have to keep that ongoing by doing what we're doing now on social media. And I'd like to welcome all of you, because I know this is going global, and for some people I'm going to have to say good morning, and for some people it's good afternoon, for some people it might be the middle of the night. So whoever is tuning in, I'm very grateful to be able to share what we love to share and the knowledge that gets spread all over the world. Okay? So what we're going to be doing today is a haircut from start to finish. We started with preparing the hair, and I'm going to take the opportunity right now to already show you our leave-in repair, which is for me one of my favorite cutting lotions, because it hydrates the hair so nicely without putting any weight. It creates a little bit of almost like, if you overuse it, what I do, it creates almost like a little bit of a slight sweaty feeling in the hair. A hair that's got a sheen to it, and a hair that kind of feels really lived in. So what I've been doing lately with the products is I work with the leave-in repair, and I use Staying Alive on top of that, and that gives me that little gritty editorial based feel like you see more in the kind of subculture magazines. Depending on the dose that you use and how you combine these products together, it's going to give you the result that you're aiming for. So today we have been prepping with leave-in repair and also our Staying Alive. And as I said, I have been using generous amounts of that, because this is also going to be used for me personally, actually as a styling product. Because of overusing it a bit, I'm going to have that grit that I want into the hair towards working from the haircut into the finish. So what I'd like to share with you, first of all, because I know some of you will just be watching, some of you will be actually getting your tools out and do some work. I just want to share with you the sectioning pattern. As you can see, what we did is we worked from almost behind the apex, and we created a triangular section which has started from a center parting. Because starting with the center parting is going to help us to get the balance in and the proportion in the sectioning pattern, which is very important, because the balance and the proportion are responsible for the quality within the result. Okay? So first of all, behind the apex, we went to the corner of the eyebrow, so it's quite a large, wider kind of section. And then we worked from the back, right on the top, above the occipital bone, and we worked right along the curvature of the head shape, with a section that just travels over the curve and then meets up with the corners of our previous section. So it's almost like a horseshoe that goes a little pointy at the back and goes above the occipital bone, because we want to remove a lot of weight here, so we don't want the section to travel too low there at this point. Okay, now from that same point, we then work two diagonal forward sections right from above the occipital bone to the top of the ears. Okay, I will explain the purpose of the sectioning pattern as we work step by step along the haircut, because this way it's going to make more sense and it's going to be easier to understand. And what I want from today is education that you guys can take up in your portfolio, make sure that you can use it for your taste, for your abilities, and for your clientele. Once the salons are open, you can use it as a strong tool to actually provide great shapes with it. Because this is only one technique I'm going to show you, but with this pattern, depending on how you manipulate the length, how you combine the shape, and how you play around with the proportion, it's going to create a lot of varieties within different haircuts. So even for the people that are going to be cutting as we speak, all of you will have a slightly different result. And this is what it's about. Okay, I'm not here to dictate you of how you should be cutting hair. I'm hopefully here to motivate you and to inspire you how it's possible to get a great result using a great technique. Okay, it's really important to be inspired. I think a visual inspiration, whatever keeps you going, is a very important starting point, because we need to be triggered by something in order to get inspired and actually then transform that into a technique. So basically everything you can visualize, you can materialize, and that's important to know. So whatever gets you going when it comes to inspiration, for me personally, it's actually bad haircuts from bad neighborhoods, okay? Because I like the rawness, I like the roughness, and I like to get inspired by that, to see how it's transformable into something really cool and actually done, if you like, correctly. All right, so I hope that makes sense. What we're going to do first, I'm just going to put that a little higher. Make sure the position of the head goes upwards a little bit, and I hope it's a good time to start cutting now. I'm going to start with the Kevin Murphy cutting comb, and I'm going to work with the regular scissors to start with. Later we might change it into the curved scissors, but for the moment what we want to do first, and I'm just going to turn it around a little so you can see, make sure the head position is right. First of all, we're just going to remove the excess length. So we're going to take the hair to the length that we want, and then we're going to start graduating. Because the idea from the haircut, first of all, is to create a short little graduated undercut as a foundation. The haircut I will be doing, I would like to call a long short haircut, because it's going to be a short haircut, and probably most of you that know me, they know how passionate I am about short hair. But this is going to be like a grown out, a lived in kind of short haircut. It's going to be a short haircut for people that are actually scared of having short hair. Okay, so what we're going to do first is I'm going to just use a one length technique. Cut very, very gentle. Remove all that excess length. Okay, making sure we're keeping our classical discipline, so we have the right balance all the way through within the shape, because this is a foundation.
Hey Pascal, can you explain to everyone watching what made you determine the length that you're cutting it to at first?
Yes, well, the length, I want to have a tight kind of short graduation, so I don't want to have any excess length going too long from the perimeter, because I don't like the hair at that point to actually kick out too much. So I'm starting just below the hairline. On a mannequin head, that would be like, I would say, maybe 1 inch below the hairline, because the hair is a little bit more, it has a different implantation, a bit stronger, a bit more jumpy. So the length is just to make sure that we have a length that makes the hair sit inwards rather than the hair to be kicking out. I hope that's the right answer they want to hear.
Thank you.
So we're just going to continue that.
We do have another question, Pascal.
Sure.
When you are cutting that first initial length, are you keeping the cutting comb flat, or are you beveling it at all?
That's a very good question, Tim. I like that. Well, you have the option to do what suits you best personally. I'm just bringing the cutting comb down and then have a slight angle, because then I can use the edges of the teeth of the comb as my guidance to have one blade being guided by that, and then only the top blade is actually cutting the hair. And that gives me stability that I need to keep the precision in the way I'm cutting. Okay, I'm happy with that. Just double checking that corner here. Okay, so this is our base. This is it's a one length. We just kind of follow the section here. So the why behind this section is actually to make sure we just start from a short square base. Okay, so now what we want to do with that is to make sure that now we focus on the weight. And we're going to have a slight graduation. So that means we're going to build up a little bit of length and weight towards the curve of the head shape. Alright, so what we're going to do, because I don't want to have any excess length or weight sitting behind the ear, because this is what this section is going to be responsible for. So I want it kind of neat and tight, and I want to have a classical, good undercut foundation. So this is an old package of Staying.ALIVE, which is just water spray, because I just love the way it sprays. And this is just water because there is a lot of Staying.ALIVE there already. So just making sure we're keeping the hair really nice and hydrated, because this is going to help me to get a nice even tension on the hair. Okay, now just picking up the hair, we're going quite tight. There we go. We're using the baseline as our guide, and then we have a slight angle with the fingers. Not 45 degrees, that would be a little too strong, because we want it to be a very soft graduation. And now we're going to work using slight diagonal sections. Why? Because the diagonal sections are going to make it easier for us to follow the head shape. Okay, making sure we can see the guide from start to finish. And now we deep point cutting the hair. You see the angle of the blade is quite steep. So that means you get a very splintered feel in the edges, because if it's too diagonal, it can get a little too chunky. And this is not the texture at this part of the haircut that we're looking for. Okay, there is hardly any tension on the hair, because it's very organic, and hair doesn't need tension even if you work with precision. I mean, look at how that shape is coming together. Very happy with that. So we can continue that, and I'm going to work just across the center part. And then we're just going to repeat the same on the other side, and then overlapping that in the middle to make sure we have the balance right. Now, something very important here is that we're not over directing the hair. Okay, we're cutting on base, so we're not building up any weight towards the center back. So that's why I'm actually combing the hair almost from the back of the section into the base. And also what we really need to look at is like very loose tension, and then making sure, see, I can see the guideline. I don't know if you can see that, but I can see the guideline from start to finish. And this is actually making sure that you're controlling that shape with the right amount of balance. Because what we do here is, it's almost a very classical part in quite an advanced haircut. So now we're reaching the center back. We're going to slightly go across that, because we will do the same with the opposite side. And then we're going to overlap that.
Pascal, you're getting a lot of love on your scissor action. Can you share any tips on how you strengthened that skill for yourself?
Well, it took a while. I have to be honest, Tim, thanks for that question. I like that question, and thanks for giving me the love, guys. I really, it's weird because this is probably the smallest audience I've ever worked for. I have actually physically one person in the room, which is my daughter Mila. She's filming this for us because then it's a little bit more organic and we can go closer and stuff like that. The scissor action, it wasn't taught at college. You know, it's something that once I moved to London back in the mid-90s, it was something that caught my eye over there, where it allows you to actually only work with the thumb and keep one blade stable. And it's really good ergonomically for your body, but it's also really good to control the precision in your hair and to control being confident about how to actually execute a clean line. I will show you. See, we're taking the same guide here. So one blade is actually put on one finger. The other blade is cutting, which is actually allowing me to look at Mila and cutting hair, not to show off, but to actually make you understand that how safe it is and how you're not so likely to cut your fingers. Now, I'm putting myself on the line here because if I would cut my finger in 10 minutes from now, everyone's going to laugh, but that's fine. Transparency is very important. So it's something that you can just practice at home, and then you can put your hand there and just practice that, and then eventually you take your hand away, and then you can incorporate it in your work. But I would say when you first do it, it's very unnatural, so don't start doing it with every client in the salon. But maybe you can practice that with your last client at the end of the day, and that gives you a little bit of leeway with timing and stuff like that. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, Pascal, we've got a couple of other questions about how you're actually cutting. So, because you're pulling that whole section together in your hand, are you essentially creating a concave line? And are you pulling up slide on the sections before cutting?
Okay, so two questions to answer. So I'm using the previous section as a traveling guide to move onto the base of my next section. So what it's going to do, because we're not over directing backwards, the shape is going to be slightly curved with the head shape because it has the same length following the head shape. Now, I've been cutting hair in the business for a long time, so I'm not so much like very static anymore. Once I have the hair gripped between my fingers, I'm actually pretty much relaxing that because it's the grip and the guideline that's going to give me the shape and the length I need. So then I'm just relaxing my hand. You don't have to do that. It doesn't give you any difference or benefit in the result. It's just something that feels more relaxed for me to work. Yes, I'm using pretty much the tip of the scissors, but it's not very deep, not at this point. I will go a little bit deeper later in the cut, but the scissors are not very angled diagonally. They're very, very steep, very parallel to the hair almost, because that's going to make sure that we don't have these kind of little gaps or little scissor marks. Okay, just checking my balance as we go along, happy with that. So we're almost crossing over at the back now. And using the same thing. So this is important, that we over-direct the hair, not backwards, but we bring it all to the base. This is super important. Seeing the guideline from start to finish, and then we cut. Look at that. That's coming together very nicely. And this is going to be a very important part of the haircut because this is going to be a really strong foundation. This is a very important part that's almost going to keep the haircut together and hold it together for weeks to come. Now I'm just going to cross-check that. I have a little gap there that I want to check over. There it is. Okay, so we're going to cross-check that, making sure the shape and the balance are correct. Look at that. Nicely square in the middle, but as we go through the sides and we putting that, cross-checking that horizontally in the opposite direction, you'll see that the shape curves around, mirroring the shape of the hat.
Pascal, do you recommend going back near the end and reviewing this point cut in parallel even when the hair is dry?
You can do that in longer bits. I don't think that in this case with the undercut here, that won't be necessary. Because what we're doing here is creating the length, the shape, and the softness within the shape in one go. If you feel the need for that, I mean, texturizing and personalizing is always something, I mean, the word itself says it, it's personalizing, so it's a personal thing. But in this case, I don't particularly want more texture or more wispiness in this particular area. I'm just happy with how the shape has been developed, so I will not have to go back into that. And to be honest, with most of the haircut, I'm going to try to cut it in such a way that once the haircut is finished, the shape is into place, the proportion is into place, and also the texture is into place. So we're working with all these ingredients from start to finish. So I'm happy with how the hair is responding. So I think it's time to move on now, but before we move on, I just want to make sure everyone is okay with that and everyone understands this part. So the why behind this is to create a tighter shape through the nape, which slightly graduates because we want to have a little bit of a silhouette looking from the profile that has slightly a bit of density to the top. So how we did it? First of all, yes?
Sorry, apologies. Just for clarification, what elevation are you taking the hair across the occipital area?
Well, the elevation was 90 degrees. The angle of the fingers was between 90 and 45. It was not a 45 angle, but it was also not exactly straight from the head shape. So it was between 90 and 45 for the angle. The direction of the hair was 90 degrees because it wasn't over-directed.
So about 72.5.
Well, I mean, I'm very wary and careful to talk too much about degrees. In our portfolio, we talk about 0, which is tensionless and cut to the comb. We have 45, which is a graduation, and then everything from 90, which is a layering. So we degrees, but it's, if they want to have a vision of that, it's somewhere between 90 and 45 with how we angle the fingers in comparison with the head shape. Okay, so if we're happy with that, I think it's time to move on. We're going to continue undercutting, but the reason why I didn't start cutting this principle from the back is because I want to have a little bit more density and also a little bit more length into the side. So we're going to use that corner and subdivide the hair into two, like this. Keep the sections nice and proportioned, nice and clean. Putting one thumb on the comb and then just let the comb slide along the head shape, preferably using the wide teeth of the comb. And then to actually pick up the section to cut, I think the right tension is worked with the shorter teeth of the comb. Not the smaller teeth of the comb, sorry. So now I'm going to use this guideline. I'm not going to disconnect yet. I'm just going to change my technique. And again, the point cutting now is probably getting a little more profound. And we're using that as a guide to actually work establishing the length just at the bottom of the ear. Like so, and then moving on low elevation, and here, instead of working vertical, we're working horizontal. So that is going to help us to control the weight within the shape. Because the way of how we move the hair up or down, which we call elevation, is more controllable when it comes to weight. That's why in the 70s people were working a lot more vertical, and in the 80s the work was a lot more horizontal because it was more about building up shapes. Just double checking that, making sure everything fits into place. Okay, happy with that. Just gonna lower that a little. Because now we're gonna use that guideline, but we're gonna start elevating the hair up more. So we're gonna use the guideline, bring it all the way up, square, parallel to the floor, making sure we can see the guideline. There you go. And then when we comb it down, it's going to be quite loose. But we do have to over direct it high enough using the guides that we just established.
Hey Pascal, this is a little off topic, but a lot of people are loving the timeless image on the banner. Can you tell them where that came from?
This is our in-house collection we've done. We shot that in December. And what we wanted to do, because of course I have the collection that I did together with the team for Kevin Murphy, but I also have my own on-brand collections. And for a long time I wanted to do a collection that referred to something that's very adaptable in the salon and that actually has a very timeless appearance. So this is one of the looks of the collection that's called Timeless, and it's like a mid-length kind of bob with just a bit of texture rather than layers, and then with this kind of 70s feel in the fringe. But it's something that's very relevant now with what's happening to all of us in the world with the global pandemic, that I don't know what's going to come out of that afterwards. I don't know what the clients is going to ask for, but I really believe that timeless feel that we also have in our Kevin Murphy cutting collections is going to become something very relevant to actually do hair. That it's not about trends so much, it's not too much involved with the appearance of gadgets, but it's more like a very simple approach to beautiful looking hair with some very minimal details. So this is like, I would say, a prime example of that. Okay, see how the hair starts to respond? I'm just going to wet it down a little bit more, because here I probably do want to texturize a little bit more as we work along. Once again, for the people that just tuned in, this is an old Staying Alive bottle with water, because the hair has been prepped already with the leave-in repair and a lot of Staying Alive as a prep. So we don't want to overdo it. I'm just going to go back into that. And see, the hair is...
Your pro tips, Pascal, is that important for you to keep the hair evenly hydrated throughout the entire haircut?
It's for me personally, it's not everyone I think feels like that, but for me personally, it's very important, because it has so much to do with how you put tension on the hair, and the best way to equalize that tension on, I mean, this is like a fiber we work on. It's like an organic fiber of like thousands of little strands, and having that hair really, really hydrated and really moist is going to help us to control that in the technical part of the shape. So here we go. I like the way the hair starts moving This is exactly what I was looking for. So now I'm just going to see if I can turn it like this. You can see it better. We're going to do the same for the opposite side. So from that point, we're just splitting that in half. We section it away, keep it out of the way for the moment. And then we're starting from the back, and we're actually using the guideline of our graduation. Can everyone see that clearly? Is that working? That Mila is kind of a little bit closer?
Everyone very appreciative of the camera operator, yes.
All right, great. Because otherwise, I mean, it's very difficult with a haircut because there's so many different areas. It's so difficult to be able to see every spot that's being cut. So that's why we thought it might be important to have someone operating that and be a bit mobile about that, to be able to see all the details that are ever so relevant within the cut.
Another question, Pascal, would this haircut be great for any texture and density, or would you stay away from certain types?
No, that's a haircut which is very useful for different densities and different textures. Of course, I mean, if you're dealing with extremely fine hair, then you might want to adjust certain areas of detail within your cut. Like, for example, if you work with really fine hair, then you might have to lower the elevation to the sides a little bit instead of working it out all square, just to make sure you work with the suitability of the hair type. But it's for sure I've chosen for a haircut which is very adaptable and can be used on any texture. Even curly hair, like if you would deal with very curly hair, I've tried it out because this is not actually an existing haircut of any of our collections. It's one of the haircuts I've been playing around with as being locked down in quarantine and just kind of jamming around here in this place in my studio where I belong. And but I did try it on different textures, and it works really well. So just keeping an eye on the guideline and the elevation. There's a lot of cutting work here because, yeah, we basically started from a blank canvas, just long hair, so it's very exciting to see that transforming into a complete restyle. This is what I love doing. This is what I do a lot in the salon, and you know, just like you guys, I spend time behind the chair, and I think it helps me to have the variety in my job, but also it helps me to make sure that everything that's designed creatively for educational purposes is actually still relevant of how we can actually adapt it into a salon environment which is commercial. And there is nothing wrong with commercial. Sometimes commercial is something that has like a bit of a negative vibe to it, but there is no reason for that, because at the end of the day we want our haircuts to sell, because this is why we're doing them, this is why we educate them. So commercial is good as long as it doesn't become routine and it doesn't become boring, because this is the danger from the job that we do, is that things become comfortable and it becomes routine. And routine is a very dangerous thing, because you get into a comfort zone and it's just easy. And when things get easy, I believe it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous situation to be in. That's with everything. So things have to be a little bit challenging, and we have to be kept on the tip of our toes, because this is what brings the best out of us, and this is also what's going to keep us motivated all the way.
Pascal, we have a question about which scissors are you currently using?
Now the scissors I'm using at the moment are actually my own brand, Pascal Van Loenhout blades. Later in the longer parts of the haircut I'm going to be using the Kevin Murphy curved scissors. We had some requests about the scissors, but yeah, unfortunately they're sold out at the moment, and as I never intended to be like a scissor retailer, I was a little bit slacking and, you know, keeping an eye on keeping that production going. But these scissors were designed by myself like, I don't know, 4 years ago, and they're just, I was just very picky about the balance and the proportion, because this is what I do, guys. I cut hair, and I do that every day for many hours. So I just wanted scissors that actually completely fit my needs and live up to the expectations that I have. For the rest, it's just a pair of scissors. They're not groundbreaking. They're just, I was very picky about how they were put together when it comes to proportion and stuff like that. Just gonna double check the balance. That feels good. One more checkup and then we can move on. Because just to let you know, guys, this is what I do. I'm literally a hair cutter, you know. I cut hair. I love every single bit about cutting hair. And I always say to the people, always remember, don't forget, I'm not qualified to do anything else. So there you go. Saying that, I have been working on some editorial work for magazines, and luckily I have been surrounded with the most amazing masters and design directors to be able to actually somehow, you know, pull it off. But I could never take a class doing styling with the actual principles and how you guys put together a hairstyle with all the preparation and all the relevance of doing it effortlessly and stuff like that. I just, you know, I'm happy to make hair look good for pictures, and I think being in the business for 28 years I can do that. But, you know, I thrive on cutting hair. I love cutting hair. I love putting a shape together and make it last for a while.
Pascal, 2 questions. First question is, how long are the scissors you're using currently?
The scissors are 6.5.
Okay. Second question is, how do you find, or do you have any tips that you can share to always bringing new ideas and alternatives to clients so that they don't get bored?
Well, the most important thing is that you have to feed your clients. You have to listen twice as much as you speak in the consultation, but when you have the chance to speak, you need to navigate them. And to be able to navigate your clients in the correct way, you need to be very inspired yourself. It's very important to be inspired to be able to navigate them. And the source of inspiration that keeps you going, you have to find that out for yourself. So once you listen to your client and you find out what is the problem that person comes up with, then it's up to us to come up with a solution for that. Because a lot of people still make the mistake that just to ask the client, oh, what would you like and what can I do for you? No, I think it's important to listen to the frustration and then come up and navigate with a great idea. And sometimes hairdressers get like a writer's block, you know, there's too many options, but you have to look at the face shape, at the hair type, at the personality, and once these boxes are ticked off, there might be no room left for creativity. And that's fine. That's fine, because there's only when there's room left for creativity, then we will follow that path of creativity, but it's not always necessary. Just keep it simple, and ticking off the boxes in itself is a creative flow anyway, so that's absolutely cool.
design director with Kevin Murphy, and even creating your own personal haircut collections. Any tips or advice on where do you find your inspiration?
Well, I'm a huge fan and collector of art books in all forms. So for me, what keeps me going is books or subculture magazines like underground magazines, where hair is portrayed in a very raw format. And I'm pretty good at translating something raw into something that works commercially. So that's a huge inspiration. And then, of course, being in the position of being so lucky to travel, as I said, I mean, I love going to the bad places where it's a little bit dangerous, because this is where you see really bad hair, or what we consider to be bad hair, but it can be very self-made and very inspirational. Because if you're well trained and you know your skill set, you know your classics, you need to have something that disturbs your head a little bit. You know, you need to have something that actually provokes that. And for me, the street culture in the bad neighborhoods presenting bad haircuts is the biggest trigger, personally. I hope that was helpful. Okay, now I'm going to change to the curved scissors, Kevin Murphy scissors. And now it's going to be the point where we're going to start disconnecting. Look at that, how strongly we separate that. Because if you want to benefit from the curve, you have to go halfway the blade to be able to benefit from that curve, and so the curve promotes that movement. If you only go with the tip of the scissors, you will do a beautiful haircut anyway, but you will not benefit as much from the curve. And that's the whole idea of the Kevin Murphy curved scissors, to actually create a more bended kind of texture and to promote the movement in the hair. Okay, following the head shape, we're working still horizontally here because that's going to help us to control the shape. And you can point cut with a normal pair of scissors, but you can never have the bend that we have here. And the good thing is that it's actually still cutting hair. We're not actually damaging the cuticle by slicing into the hair, or by using a razor, or blending scissors, or anything like that. It's just chopping into the hair, keeping the hair nice and healthy. Just lowering the elevation a little bit into the sides. So almost blending that with the initial guide, but not to forget that there is an undercut there. So the undercut is actually going to promote the movement and the texture. There we go. I think it's important that as you work through the technical procedure, that you feel that the hair responds to what you want it to do. Because if something doesn't work, we have to change it. And this is the research I do for you guys. I mean, it doesn't always work out perfectly with me when I do something the first time at all. I need to jam. I need to, fail and error and do it again. And then I come up with a haircut which is suitable for the salon, but also for education. So it's my job as a design director to actually do the research, try it out, try and error, until we have a good final product that has a good technical and visual background. And once that's into place, then it's ready for education.
closely with Kevin on deciding what may become relevant in the future. How does that work in your mind as a creative?
Well, since I'm side by side with Kevin and the team, it may be so much of a better hairdresser because we are an established brand in the hairdressing industry, but I think when it comes to that we're a little bit atypical because Kevin, having that background of being an editorial hairdresser, he's actually so inspiring by doing his research but also knowing what he wants to be always on brand and at the forefront of what we do within the industry, that it's a huge inspiration because I think the industry has been just doing what they do and just following each other. And Kevin loves to go against the grain, not within the brand, but within the industry. And this is something that makes me feel I click the most within the brand. It's just having that raw source of inspiration, that good connection with the fashion industry, that relevance to the street style, and having the resources. I put it into place because, I mean, when we do a shoot, Kevin will always tell me, it's like, oh, it looks just a little too nice. It needs to be looking a little bit wrong, and then it's going to look more real. It's going to, you know, be more adaptable for people to understand it. And this is, for me, a great inspiration. And this is, of course, Kevin, but this is the whole team with all the different individuals within the team embracing the same philosophy, but still having their own quirky little things of how to do it. And I truly, truly appreciate and respect that. And it's the most inspiring thing ever. So for that reason, I think what we're doing here online now is so important because it's the only way of how we can connect these days. And if we don't do that, it's kind of dangerous to go off on our own journey or to not go off at all. And that would be a terrible thing to happen. Okay, I'm going to go back into that, just detailing that a little bit as we work along to make sure once the hair is done cutting, we don't have to actually dry it and go back into it. I'm actually doing it as I'm working along. All right, happy with that? So what we're going to do now is the same on the opposite side. Maybe it's better to stand here, a bit more. Just get it out of the way a little bit more.
There's a question, Pascal, about what comb are you using?
This is the Kevin Murphy cutting comb. It's kind of large and it has the right size and measurements, and it has the small side of the teeth, the wide side of the teeth. It's a very kind of classical large cutting comb. I also like the fact that you can bend it. I like it that you can just, you know, bend it around and stuff like that. I don't know exactly the material of what it's made from, but it kind of, I like larger combs to work with because they give me more flexibility. Yeah, this is what I love working with. So now I'm going to take the guideline from the back to make sure we are into balance here. Allowing some hair below the finger to give you the space to deep point cut. Don't cut onto the finger, just make sure there is enough hair below the finger because you need the space to cut. Otherwise your point cutting will not be steep enough. And now we're blending that with the underneath, knowing that in between there is still a little undercut going on. Okay, dropping the top. Just taking a little guide from the other side, making sure we keep an eye on that balance. Keep wetting the hair down. See, you have to create like points of reference for yourself, which makes it easy to go through the procedure of the haircut. So the why behind this disconnection here is that it's going to create a little bit of a slightly wider feel and denser feel just along the curve. And that's going to make it look a little kind of quirky, but in the right proportion. It's almost like working editorial imperfections, but kind of put them together correctly. And this is also something I've learned from Kevin in the very first time we were working together. That balance is good. I just need to have a little bit just at the back here. That's, you know, it's just putting things, imperfection, putting it perfectly together, that kind of thing. And this is where I embrace our personal slogan, perfection kills. It's quite an important statement for us. Look at that, that's going together nicely. I'm happy with that. Just one little bit here on this side. I mean, we are working on quite an organic kind of shape, but still it's really important that we keep our work precise when it comes to technique. Okay, we just reached the last part now. And this is quite an interesting part because this is where we're going to keep a little bit more length. And we're going to work a little bit quirky with the shape. So the idea is to have the length longer, very broken, kind of very grown out, lived in, and have a bit of a contradiction with the other parts in the haircut. So we are going to comb the hair forward, twist it around with the fingers, and then have a look. I'm happy with that, but it needs to be a little shorter. With consultation and finish and everything included, I would work on an hour appointment in the salon. Okay, I'm happy with that. So now we're going to take we use the back of the section as a point to pivot from, and then we work in small triangular or pie-shaped sections. And we're going to over-direct it to the center. Bring the hair forward, so we're keeping a little bit weight and density internally. I mean, it's really important that here we actually started from long hair, so we started from a blank canvas. You have to make sure if you start from a previous kind of haircut that you have the right proportion to be able to do this kind of thing on. And of course it can be very changeable, and that's the whole idea of it, but it's very important to understand the importance of certain combinations of length within the shape.
We have a question, Pascal. Do you have any tips for stubborn partings in the back? I usually thin the hair to get it away, but then it always ends up short.
Sorry Tim, for stubborn
partings in the back, they usually thin it to get the hair away, but then it always ends up too short.
That's right. Well, I'm not sure if they're going to like that answer, but everything that has a funny twist or a turn into the hair, whether it's in the hairline on the back or at the crown, I actually try to find a way to embrace that instead of trying to hide it. And that is what makes little haircuts so cool, because this is what you actually see in most inspirational editorial magazines. We're actually trying to find ways of getting quirky twists and twirls and movements. The hardest part about this philosophy, and I'm going to be honest with you because I'm experiencing that, is to make your client understand it's actually cool. Because client can be very picky and say, oh, something is sticking up there and it's actually not sticking up there. Great, cool, looks perfect. But if you have this kind of client that doesn't really want to have that, then you have to actually work with little undercuts or shave like little hairlines a bit higher up and do it very, very technically and more kind of hairdressy. But I always would go for the option of actually embracing the imperfection of any twist or twirl in the natural hair and just make it a statement rather than trying to hide it. Hopefully that makes sense.
We have a few more questions, Pascal. So I know that every region in the country is different, but what would you typically charge for this haircut?
Well, I would charge in Europe, in Belgium, I would charge 150 euro. And I think that's kind of similar to $150, if I'm not mistaken. That probably in my region, in my area in Belgium, makes me the most expensive cutter around. Not the most expensive hairdresser, but the most expensive cutter. And I've only been handling that kind of price for the last 2 years, because before that I was charging 100, and I kind of went to a very high price increase in one go. And yeah, funnily enough, and luckily enough, all people accepted that and actually stayed with me, so that was great.
Another few questions, Pascal. So how did you initially determine the length in the center of that section that you're now directing everything to?
Yes, well, that's a tough question because I don't measure hair. And people can say, oh, that's easy for you, you've been doing this for 28 years, but I never did actually, because otherwise it becomes like maths and studied, and I want it to be organic. So it's actually, if you're not sure, I would say leave it on the long side and then let it drop, have a look at it, kind of twist it and bend it a bit and see what it needs more or not. Don't try to cut it too short from the start, because that doesn't give you any options anymore. But it's really important that even in our education, we don't actually tend to measure hair as such.
And another question, Pascal, are you cutting this haircut overall to be worn with a side part, center part, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter, but I'm aiming for more of a center parting here, because this is something that is going to make it look very modern and very now. But it could be, I'm just going to chop into that. I'm really happy about the balance. Things are coming together here. How are we doing for time, Tim?
We're great, Pascal.
Okay, great. So, I mean, it could even be worked in a tuck behind the ears and with a quiff, you know. You can even quiff it up, but I'm going to be looking for kind of having a better version of the Backstreet Boys, I would say. That's maybe not a great reference, but let's keep it fun. I mean, you'll... What's that?
We have another question, Pascal. What made you decide to be a hairdresser originally?
Oh, that was a coincidence. I actually wanted to be a rock star, but I wasn't determined enough, and I didn't qualify to be a rock star. I was just not good at playing a musical instrument. I was just good at doing the rock star lifestyle. That was it. So when I did very bad at school when I was 14, my mother had and still has a very successful salon, and coming home with bad results was very frightening. So actually, to make it up, I said, look, I have bad news and I have good news. The bad news is I can't pass my year, so I can't move up. The good news is that actually I decided to become a hairdresser, which at that time was not true at all. I just wanted to make her happy. And then I did my college, and still I wasn't sure at all about that, but it was when I went to Vidal Sassoon in London in '92 This is where, for me, where it clicked and all came together, and where I became determined from, you know what, this is what I want to do. So yeah, it took some time. And now I can't see myself doing anything else, to be honest. Okay, happy with that shape. I'm just going to have a little top-up of the real Staying Alive. I mean, not water. Just a little top-up. And then I'm going to do a little bit of twist combing. Just keep it very natural. Going downwards and backwards. This is how you don't get stuck. Okay, look at that, that's looking great. We want it to be very kind of natural and have that very gentle movement in it. Same on the opposite side. Now I'm just going to work with my left hand, because then it works better to move it backwards and twist it that way. Okay, slightly turning that around into the back. You see all the subtle disconnections are nicely overlapping each other, and this is actually creating texture by technique, because everything is actually approached pretty technical. It's just the way we cut is very loose, but the way we approach it is very technical. And this is something that grows out really well, so it makes your clients happy from a commercial point of view. But it's also very educatable. So it's something that, I mean, unfortunately, there's no academies for taste. There's no academies for feeling, for vision. There is academies for technique. So now I'm just going to use the texture net. And just put it on the top. Very gently. Look at that, looks already pretty 20s now at this point. And now I'm just going to dry it. Just dry it under the net. Keep it flat but maintain the texture. So we're working as a finish like very, very undone and very visual. And this is how I personally like to work in the salon as well. It took a little bit of time. I mean, when I first moved to Antwerp from London, there was still a huge blow dry culture. And consciously we wanted to turn that around. We wanted to actually make a statement of being a salon that provides kind of easy to maintain haircuts, suitable for the individual, and making it very, very modern. Making hair sit really well at all times. Took me a few years to accomplish that, but eventually it worked. So the products I've used are going to give me that, as I said, that almost like a little bit, I mean very lived in as it is anyway, but that little bit of kind of sweatiness to the hair, and that's what I love. That's what I really like. Imperfection in the finish, is something that really keeps me going. I mean, I think hair looks a lot more sexy when it's not perfect, personally. And when it's touchable. I think it needs to be organic. It's a personal thing, but I hardly use hairspray myself. Because I don't like to set hair. I think hair needs to blow in the wind, and hair needs to be touchable. It makes it very, very organic and very sexy. So if there's any more questions, this is a good time. I'm just really happy to be part of a crowd of people and sharing the knowledge. It's kind of weird that I have no idea who's watching and how many people are watching. So it feels like I'm doing this haircut here just for my daughter, by myself. But it's something, yeah, I'm getting used to. You know, we've done a few live feeds on Instagram and Facebook. And I will be doing one more next week, I believe on the 14th of April. And I'm happy to be able to do that because the salon now and the academy it's now the 4th week of lockdown. So otherwise I'd probably go crazy. I need to do this, I need to cut hair. This is what I'm built for. Sorry, say that again, Tim?
How does the Dyson dryer compare in weight, heat, and drying time, in your opinion?
Well, I like it. It took me a little bit of time because I think in the beginning it had a little bit of things that needed to be looked after, but it lays very well in the hand. And it seems to dry the hair pretty fast with very little noise. Now, I don't know when it comes to the technology of making wet hair dry, or how far that can go, because I think more creatively, and from a creative point of view, it's just kind of ergonomically, it's very nice. It doesn't make a lot of noise, and I actually became a fan of it. It's not so, the heat doesn't seem to be so aggressive, and yet it still dries fast enough. I mean, this can never dry fast enough for me because I use too many products. So, not too much product, but I did that on purpose because I like the result of it. It just takes a little bit longer to dry.
Why the texture net and not a traditional diffuser?
Well, a traditional diffuser would still give me a little bit of volume, and here I want the movement and the texture, but I try to, by using the net, I try to get it kind of really head-hugging, the shape. So with a diffuser would be absolutely fine. You would just have more volume, but if you do it with a diffuser, I would always recommend just to let the diffuser do the work. Don't try to squeeze it with the hands too much, just put it into place with your, for example, with your texture comb. Nicely put it into place, tweak it a little bit, and then let the diffuser do the work. But probably, once I take the net off, I'm just going to probably kind of blow dry, not blow dry, but just blast it a little bit with cold air, just to loosen it up a little. Really difficult to find a moment when to take the net off, because it doesn't have to be 100% dry, but we don't want it to be too wet. And already this technique takes a little longer, and then because there's a huge amount of leave-in repair there, that adds a bit of time to the procedure of drying the hair, but the result is great, so that's the most important. So when it comes to products, I think we are very lucky, because what Kevin Murphy provides as a brand is it's something unique, it's special, it's lightweight, and it has the right fragrance, it feels very fresh, and it's something that gives us the desired result for the work that we want to do, and that's that kind of minimal editorial feel that's really pretty much represented in the work that inspires us by the right magazine. So I think the product is a very responsible tool in order to get the right result, whether it's on the catwalk or on your photo shoot or in the salon.
How does that affect the maintenance of your scissors?
Oh, it doesn't. Well, unless you would work with a hairspray, it probably would. But if you have the relevant products, even like a smooth again, the only thing you have to do, you don't even, I mean, if you work with Japanese blades, handmade Japanese blades, you don't really have to oil them really. All you have to do is maybe between every client, just give them a little rinse with some hot water, just to get any residue off. I never had a problem with the Kevin Murphy products. I used to have a bit of problems in the past with some residue, but just rinsing them is enough. If you don't have the Japanese steel handmade, then you might have to rinse them and oil them, but it doesn't really affect. I mean, I never get scissors sharpened. I work with them three years at least. I look after them really well, have always the little leather pouch and stuff like that, make sure I don't drop them, and then I use them for many years. And I mean, a lot of my work is done on mannequin heads, and even that doesn't really affect the longevity of the scissors, so that's not a problem at all. But that's a great question, thank you for that. Okay, I'm super patient with cutting hair, but I'm very impatient with drying hair, so I think the time has come to take that off. Just gonna put the nozzle on, and now we're just gonna keep going a little bit, but with cold air, so we're not really increasing any volume. We're just kind of messing up a little bit what we just done. I like the way it's responding. So we just need to make sure that we don't ruin that. Cold air is going to make sure that it doesn't add volume to it. kind of tweaking that in the right places. I think we're almost done. It's important not to overdo it at this stage. Maybe Kevin is looking at me now saying that I'm already overdoing it. So maybe this is the time to stop. Okay. Just one last final look. And now I'm just gonna finish it off with Touchable. It's one of my favorite final products on the hair because it just does exactly what I want hair to do, but without it being set like a hairspray. Okay, I think that's enough. And there we go. Here we have the final result. So you see the graduation that it works as a base to actually slightly stack up that hair a little bit. Making sure we have a connection here from the back, and then we're creating a little bit more of a density towards the sides. And then working with some of the hidden disconnections that just have the purpose, instead of having a strong obvious feel of undercutting or disconnection, that just manipulate the proportion within the shape, and they just promote texture and movement. So everything is come together now, and this is the point where I hope you enjoy this as much as I did actually cutting it for you guys. All I got left to say at this point is thank you so much for tuning in. If there's any more questions, this is the time now to ask them. For me, it was a great honor and a great pleasure to be able to share that with our global community. There is more to come next week, and we have all our fantastic masters doing all of what they do best for you guys to inform you and inspire you, to motivate you. So keep going, keep focused, keep motivated, stay safe, stay home, and don't forget, perfection kills. Alright, love you guys. I don't know if that's the time to tune out, Tim, but...
Thank you so much, Pascal. Everyone's loving this. You have nailed the perfect imperfection. Thanks so much for your time today. Remind everyone to tune in to Sarah Lund tomorrow.
Alright, tune in to Sarah Lund tomorrow because he's going to show you some amazing tricks. So, alright, bye for now guys. Thank you so much. Stay strong.